a little bit of Zoom. So I really feel like I'm just getting my feet wet with doing it. So I just have a desire to kind of continue it and see where it goes. Although from what I'm hearing about the current assessments, I might be rethinking that, but I'm just kidding. But again, I don't feel like I've got my feet too wet with it, so I just want to continue on doing it.
Excellent. Any questions for Ken?
Sure. Can you just, for people who might be watching, explain some of the things that you do on the board and the commission? Okay.
I just a bit of a background on myself. I've been doing real estate in the community for over 28 years. Gene Bouchard worked for my dad, and when Mark Archambault could no longer continue, he thought I might be a good fit for it, so he asked me to do it. So I came before you guys and volunteered to do it. So for the past couple of years, we haven't had that many cases brought before us. I would say probably no more than 20 in the past couple of years that I've been doing it. So we've done large ones such as Schneider Electric was one of the larger ones that we've done recently, as well as some residential ones. I fill more of the residential side of the seat. There's, with the 4 people on there, one is commercial. One does more appraisals, one is a builder. So I kind of do the residential side. And we haven't had that many cases of it, Deb, to be honest with you, over the past few years. Is that helpful? Okay.
Excellent, Ken. Thank you. We appreciate your interest and willingness to want to stay on the board. We have no more questions right now, but you should find out tonight.
Sure.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Next, I believe we have Kevin Diamond. No? Okay, that's it for interviews, right? All right, sorry, we can go into the work session.
Okay, good evening. Welcome back to In Person. We'll take a look at the agenda. We have under licenses, item A is relative to the Courthouse Center for the Arts. We have had notification from the applicant that they're not prepared to be here this evening. This also relates to the liquor license as well for Courthouse Center for the Arts on the public hearing. The council can decide what they'd like to do with that. As you recall, this is about the third continuation on this particular application. We have had communication through the solicitor's office with the applicant. It is up to the council whether they wish to consider continuing for one more meeting and give a kind of a final offer for the applicant to get everything in that they need to have, or not. So that's the council's decision.
Terry, just one question on that. Has anyone been able to contact anyone on the board as well as just the applicant?
The communications have gone to the chair of the board as well via email, so they should be aware of the current circumstances.
Good, thank you.
Item B is the last application for Global Spectrum for this is for a victualling license for Global Spectrum at the Ryan Center. They will be here to address that. Item C is the Class F 19-hour beverage license. This is their last opportunity for this type of license that they are coming before you for, and it's for the March 2nd event at the Ryan Center. You will also note further on in the agenda that there is a public hearing for a Class J liquor license. The council has to consider whether to add a Class J to the ordinance. In the meantime, they are requesting the Class F because they may not have enough time to gather everything that's necessary for the Class J license. So that's why this is on here. Again, the applicant should be here and can explain can explain that to the council. Item D is a license victualling license for Main Street Vibe. It's a business that is located on Main Street, 359 Main Street. The applicant will be here for that particular license application as well. Item E is another license that is for Point Break Cottages. That's Kevin Finnegan, who now owns the what was formerly the Admiral Dewey Inn, and he or a representative should be here this evening as well for that license. And then we have a couple of consent agenda renewals. Under public hearings, as I mentioned, there was one for the Class T liquor license for Courthouse Center for the Arts, which the council will need to decide what they want to do with that. Item B is the Global Spectrum or Spectra Venue Management Class J liquor license application, and this is the one that the council will need to decide whether or not to add to the liquor licenses. Communications. You have a communications from a member of the Sustainability Committee, Angela Tuoni, who is indicating her resignation from the committee. We have also a communication from Chief Steve Pinch of the Union Fire District requesting an opportunity to present to the council relative to the American Rescue Plan Act funding. This was placed on the agenda as a communication item. Council may note that it is actually a PowerPoint presentation. I had mentioned that as of this time, there's no mechanism set in place for the distribution of ARPA funds to outside agencies, so the council may wish to defer that, the actual request, to a later time once there is a mechanism in place by which to receive requests for funding. You also recall that there is the recommendation for an award of contract for a consulting firm, and part of that contract would be to have the firm be able to set up and design a process by which we would receive applications for funding and a metric for awarding funds through the rescue plan. So just bring that to your attention. Item E is a resolution adopted by the City of Woonsocket in opposition to House Bill H 6638, an act relating to towns and cities zoning ordinances, and this has to do with prohibiting single-family residential zoning in municipalities with a population in excess of 20,000. I will note that this particular bill has been placed or has been postponed on committee at the request of the bill sponsor, so there's not an urgency to, if the council were to decide one way or another to do something with this, but I would have the council consider maybe recommending the planning department or the planning board take a look at it. We have item G, which is resignation of William Salerno. He's resigning from the Assessment Board of Review. The other communications are consent agenda, unless anybody has any questions on any of the consent agenda items up till now. Okay. Under the town solicitor's report, Amy Goins will be giving you an update on the town manager search, as well as a report on an Open Meetings Act complaint relative to the last council meeting. If you have any questions about that now, we can certainly talk about it. If you're fine, we can move along and wait until the meeting. Under appointments, you just re-interviewed Ken Monroe for Assessment Board of Review. We also have two applicants for the 300th anniversary steering committee, Kate Sullivan and Susan Axelrod. And if the council is so inclined to consider adding them to the 300th Anniversary Steering Committee this evening. We do have a deadline of March 1st for applications, so that's for the 300th anniversary celebration. I will also point out that the town clerk has made me aware that the alternate for the Assessment Board of Review, Mr. Brad Hevenor, has expressed interest in the position that's been vacated recently by Mr. Salerno. Is that correct, Susan? I just want to make sure that's correct.
That is correct. We communicated today, and in that regard, I also wanted to know if you would like to bring him in for an interview. You did interview him last March and reappointed him to the Assessment Board. He's been on there since, I believe, 2012. I was looking for direction on that.
I'm okay with not interviewing him, but what do the rest of the council members feel? We've interviewed him before with this present council, so whatever. Go ahead.
Would we reappoint him as a member and then they elect a chair out of the body? Is that how? We're not appointing him to the vacancy created by Mr. Salerno, right? It's just not the chair vacancy, just the vacancy.
Correct.
Any other questions on?
Seems like we're okay with proceeding without interviewing Brad.
Okay. Can I also ask, while we're speaking about appointments and re-interviewing people, Russell Brown, who was appointed as an alternate to the zoning board, you interviewed him in October and appointed him. His term, because he was filling a portion of a term, is actually up in March. So he is interested in being appointed to the full member vacancy that will be created when Casey Charkowicz steps down at the end of his term in March.
Yep.
Would you want to bring him in for an interview for appointment to the full position, or?
I'm similarly okay with treating that as we would with the Brad Hevenor situation.
Thank you.
If there are no other questions regarding appointments, moving on to new business. New business, item 13A is the resolution relative to the liquor license rules amending the regulations to add a Class J convention hall liquor license. That's at the request of a Global Spectrum at the University of Rhode Island Ryan Center. The council, and I'm just going to defer to Amy, but I believe, is this the item that gets pulled up with the public hearing? So you'll pull that up after the public hearing.
So Amy, we'll open the public hearing, move this up, vote on this. Okay, after we close the public hearing, we'll move this up, vote on it, and then take action on the public hearing item.
Yes, and you should set the fee for the license as well.
Got it. Thank you.
New business item B is the continuation of the resolution to award a contract to Weston and Sampson for consultant services related to the American Rescue Plan funding. As the council is aware, this has been continued. We have a brief kind of review of what's been recommended this evening. I have Planning Director Jamie Rabbit here with just a few slides, if the council would like to see them, to be reminded of what exactly is being recommended and to explain it. And then the council can decide how they wish to proceed on that item. Are there any questions on that you'd like to discuss now? Item D is an award of bid to South County Umpires Association, and that is for referee services for the Recreation Department. That's standard. Actually, they, I believe, were the sole bidder for that role, and they have been in that role for several years running. New business item E is a recommendation for an award of bid to Automatic Temperature Control, and that is for the installation of a new unit at the Peacedale Library, and it's further defined by our facilities manager, Mark Russo, and we have the necessary funding available to replace that, which I would recommend awarding to get that repaired. Item F is an item related to discussing boards and commissions and the option for them to decide whether they'd like to hold their public meetings virtually or in person while Executive Order 2220 is still in place. The Governor's Executive Order, as you know, recently was modified to allow municipalities to be able to either hold in-person meetings, full in-person meetings, fully remote, or hybrid meetings. At the request of Councilwoman Kelso, this item has been added to the agenda for discussion purposes well, not just discussion purposes, for the council to be able to decide what they'd like to do going forward with that. This executive order sunsets as of March 19th, and I don't have any inclination at this point as to whether or not that will be extended any further. We have not heard anything unless the town solicitor's office knows otherwise. Any questions on that? Okay. Item G is a recommendation for the council to approve extending the application deadline for the elderly property tax exemption from March 15th to May 15th. This is more of an administrative formality in that the practice has been that we do not turn away applications for elderly tax exemptions, but because it is defined in the ordinance, I'm seeking the council's authorization to simply be able to continue that practice and extend it. And then at some point, I do believe the ordinance needs to be reexamined to be able to address that short time frame with which the elderly have an opportunity to apply for a tax exemption. So I would request the council's consideration of that change for this year. Item H is an extension of my current interim town manager agreement to April 1st. None of the details of the agreement change, it's the date only. And that is it for the agenda. Are there any questions or anything the council would like to discuss?
Any questions by the members? Abel?
Just going back to the courthouse center, you said that they had told you they're not going to be ready for tonight. Did they express interest in still continuing to pursue this license? I guess is...
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, they have expressed that interest.
Any more questions by any members?
She did email me because Mike had said I might be able to help her with the certificate of tax good standing, and she actually wanted to participate by Zoom. She sent it at 5 o'clock. I didn't even respond to say, I can't do that, we can't do that. And she's had a number of emergencies and another boiler blowing in the little house and cleanup. She's just overwhelmed. I think it sounds overwhelming to me. So it does say that she's working on this organizational loan, so I don't know if you want to reach out to more members of the board, because some of this I think another board member could do. I looked today, none of the board members live in South Kingstown. Somebody lives in Rock Island. The president of the board lives in Warwick, so I think there's also maybe some just like logistical things trying to organize a lot of people who don't meet together. So she said she was going to work on it tomorrow and send all information to Susan. So the tax good standing is a cumbersome thing. So, yep.
All right. No more questions or any more? All right, we'll take about a 10-minute break until the start of the meeting.
Aye.
Good evening and welcome to Town Hall. It is Monday, February 28th, 7:30 p.m. First order of business is the pledge to the flag. Next on the agenda is the land acknowledgement statement, which I will read. The town of South Kingstown pays homage to the indigenous people and land on which the town is now located. Let this acknowledgement serve as a reminder of our ongoing efforts to recognize, honor, reconcile, and partner with the Narragansett tribe, whose land and water we benefit from today. Next on the agenda is the roll call. If you would, Susan.
Council President McEntee?
Here.
Vice President Collins?
Here.
Councilwoman Bergner?
Here.
Councilwoman Kelso?
Here.
Rose?
Here.
All members present.
Next on the agenda is the approval of minutes of previous meetings.
Motion to approve items 4A, B, and C.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Anyone opposed? That motion passes. Next on the agenda is the consent agenda.
Motion to approve the consent agenda.
Second.
Here, a motion and a second. Any discussion?
Yes, I have a couple that I just wanted to take off. I wanted to take off the email from Lori Marshall regarding the Homestead Exemption Act. And I did want to take off the email from Dave Cote, if he's here, about the American Rescue Plan Act funding. I don't know if he's here, but just wanted to take those two off.
Deb Kelso, would you like to revoke your motion so we could address those in a...
Nope, I'll just amend it to,
Can't hear me? How come I can hear me? Okay. Okay, so I asked that we take that item off the agenda. Right now, if it's on the consent agenda, it gets approved and we don't discuss it. By removing it from the consent agenda, we then can discuss it at the table. It's actually what I think you're hoping to have happen, to have a conversation about the homestead exemption. So that's what the motion is.
no. So I'm going to amend my motion to approve that. I made a motion to approve the consent agenda. When Councilwoman Bergner says she wants to take off item F and item H, I will amend my motion to approve the consent agenda, but we will remove those two items for discussion.
So effectively, that means we will be talking about it at the meeting tonight and entertaining it.
Second.
No
So we
problem.
have an amended motion. Do I hear a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Anyone opposed? That motion passes. That brings us to licenses 6A.
Make a motion to continue item 6A.
I'll second.
I hear a motion and a second. Any discussion? Anyone opposed? 6A is continued. That brings us to 6B, which is a resolution granting a victualling license to Global Spectrum LP, doing business as Spectra Venue Management of Kingston, Rhode Island. Application by Leah Becky, General Manager.
Good evening, Council. Mario
Mario.
Martone for Global Spectrum LLP, and I have with me the General Manager of the Ryan Center, Leah Becky.
Excellent. Welcome, Mario, and just tell us a little bit about this.
So this is the victualling license. So essentially, this is the license that allows the Ryan Center to serve food. I have to admit there was a little bit of an oversight. We did have the appropriate state health license, but this is just kind of clearing up the record. So the arena has always sold food. The plan is to continue to sell food. We did provide a menu. I'm not sure if I uploaded that today, and so this would just allow the arena to continue to serve food at the concession stands.
Very good. Any questions by the members?
Make a motion to approve 6B.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Anyone opposed? That motion passes. Next, we have 6C, which is a resolution granting a Class F 19-hour beverage license to Global Spectrum LP, doing business as Spectra Venue Management for the Rhode Island men's basketball game on Wednesday, March 2, from 6 p.m. to 9 p.m. at the Thomas Ryan Center. application by Mario Martone. Mario, you're still here, and we understand what this is all about, and we hope this is the last one you'll be here for because we have the Class J public hearing tonight. So.
And the good news is this is the last one I can ask you for, and it's the last game of the season, so that should be the end of them.
Motion to approve item 6C.
Second.
A motion and a second. Any discussion? Anyone opposed? All right, that motion passes.
See you in a minute.
Next on the agenda is a resolution granting a victualling license to Main Street Vibe LLC, doing business as Main Street Vibe of Wakefield, Rhode Island. Application by Jennifer Nurbon, member. Jennifer, welcome.
Thank you.
If you'd like to tell us about the business, now's a great opportunity.
Yes, we are a mega tea and healthy shake and protein coffees shop, just making the community healthy.
Love it, love it. So this is an opportunity to sort of market your business even more. If you want to tell us about the hours of operation, the days you're open, the different offerings, go ahead.
Okay, we're open Monday through Friday, 7 to 3, Saturdays, 8 to 2, and closed on Sundays for church.
Got it, got it. All right, any questions from the members?
I do have a question because about the process for getting the license. I know that they may have had all their documentation in, and I feel like to be a little bit more business friendly, I'm worried that people could be ready with their licenses, say, February 14th, and not get on our agenda for 2 weeks, and then they're very anxious to open. They have bills and they have leases, and so I'm just curious about where the final approval, but we're also holding up businesses from making money in a very challenging economy. So I'm not quite sure what the question is, but I'm trying to figure out if our processes could be a little bit more business friendly, because I know they've been ready for a while, but they weren't on the agenda until today.
Susan, do you want to address the process in terms of filing and paperwork?
Applications, once they are filed in view permit, need to be complete in order for us to release them for administrative review.
Okay.
That can take up to 10 days.
Right.
And businesses need to make sure that they comply with all of the requirements that are put on there, such as this particular business had an issue with their fire alarm inspection. That didn't get rectified until middle of last week. They had applied originally for the license on, I believe, Monday, before a Wednesday deadline for the last meeting's agenda, so they did not make it onto the February 14th meeting.
Is there a way, I appreciate that, is there a way that when they first come to you and say we would like a license, that we could put it on the next agenda, and then if they're not ready for whatever reason, continue it to the next meeting, so that in case they were ready, we would have been able to do it on the 14th?
So that would sort of be like a contingent approval?
Yeah, and then, or is there a way to grant the license contingent upon receiving all of the appropriate documents? I'm just trying to not hold someone up who's spending thousands of dollars to get something up and running, and then be told, well, you have to wait until 2 weeks because you missed the agenda. So is there a way to put them on the agenda, and if they're not ready, continue it, Amy? Or is that complicating it?
Are you asking, like, if there's a way for them to begin opening and be open prior to this meeting?
No.
Or, I guess I'm
So I look at it as like, if they were ready to open and had everything T's crossed, I's dotted prior to a meeting, could we give them approval in advance contingent upon those crossed T's, dotted I's, so that way they wouldn't have to wait till the next meeting? No, we can't do that. Okay.
We sometimes do put them on subject to compliance with the fire code, the final inspections, the receipt of the Department of Health license, something, if we're aware of it. But 2 days' time was not enough time to review the application and get it on the agenda for that last meeting.
I understand. But say they came to you on Monday and said, we want to file the application. Could we change the practice and saying, you can go on the agenda, but if you don't have your ducks in a row, we're going to continue your license. So that way they may have missed 2 meetings. And I hate to hold you up from your stuff, but I'm just trying to delay, to shrink the delay. Because if they came on whatever the date was, and then they didn't make the deadline for the agenda, you could just add them to the agenda and then say they don't have all the documentation and kick it down 2 more weeks.
We may not be aware that they're trying to open immediately when they file an application online and we begin to process it. We don't have that information that they want to open next week. It's a process. We need to do the review. We need to make sure they have everything in order for what they need to present to the council for approvals.
I understand, but if they file the application and we put them on the next meeting agenda and they don't provide all the things that make you feel good about moving it forward, we could say they're not ready to go forward, we're going to continue this license. That's all, so that they don't potentially wait 3 weeks because they're somewhere in the gaps.
So, Amy Goins, Assistant Town Solicitor. One concern I would have with that potential idea is I think a lot of other businesses that appear before a lot of the other boards, like planning and zoning, would want to be in similar situations, and we have many applicants who have, permits and documentation they need before things get to the boards and on the agenda. So I think if we're talking about changing practice for one category of licenses or permits, other applicants and other businesses would start saying, well, why can't the same be true for us? So I would be hesitant to change the practice only because I think it could lead to pushback that practice be changed for, categorically. And I wouldn't want to see some of those land use applications even on an agenda with notice being sent to abutters. These licenses do not have to be advertised or notification sent to abutters, but I would just, I would hesitate to step in that direction. I think really what could be a solution that would require legislative approval is delegating some authority to the town clerk, but under the law, the council is the licensing authority.
I thought of that too because I think about the number of times people build a house or they put a shed on their property. We don't approve any of that. So some processes go through our approval and some don't. We don't know that someone's building a house down the street. And so I'm just trying to make it so that somebody's not stuck in purgatory for too long with their license. But I understand what you're saying. Thank you.
If I can, I just want to ask a clarifying question and then maybe a follow-up to that. So a business cannot open until they have approval from the town council to do so.
If a license is required, if it's a tax,
a victualizing license or whatever.
Yeah, if it's a liquor
like
license or any other license issued by the council, they need that license to begin operating.
Okay. I do see how that could be frustrating for a business that is trying to get open ASAP, especially now through COVID. And I think that looking for ways to, if we were to able to give some power to Susan to say, yes, you've got all your ducks in a row, we're going to temporarily approve you pending the next town council meeting, just looking for ways to be more business friendly.
I think the council could certainly call for a resolution urging the General Assembly to modernize that section of state law, which dates to the 19th century. But I think under the law as it stands today, it would be difficult to provide that flexibility without, as I said, potentially opening the door for some other categories of applicants to request that same kind of treatment.
Thank you.
So do I hear a motion on 6D?
Motion to approve item 6D.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Anyone opposed? That motion passes. Good luck, and I look forward to trying.
Thank you.
Next on the agenda is a resolution granting a tourist accommodations license for 12 spaces, 26 persons to Point Break Realty, LLC, doing business as Point Break Cottages. of Matunic Beach Road, application by Kevin Finnegan.
I'm not Kevin Finnegan, but I'm Emily Riendo. We are going to be opening Admiral Dewey Inn as part of Point Break Cottages. So we basically have the 10 cottages that we're running now, and we're just going to incorporate the inn along with that to allow shorter stays and people who don't have to rent out a whole house.
Excellent. Thank you, Emily. Any questions by the members? Do I hear a motion?
Motion to approve item 6E.
Second?
Hear a motion and a second. Any discussion? Anyone opposed? All right, that motion passes.
Thank you.
All right, that brings us to 7, public hearing. We have 7A.
Motion to continue item 7A.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Anyone opposed? 7A is continued. That brings us to 7B, which is a public hearing relative to an application for a license to keep and sell alcoholic beverages in South Kingstown in accordance with the general laws of 1956, as amended as follows. Class J Conventional Hall Liquor License. Application for a Class J Convention Hall Liquor License by Global Spectrum LP, doing business as Spectra Venue Management of Kingston, Rhode Island, by Leah Becky, General Manager for the concourse and arena areas of the Ryan Center, and as further defined in a site plan on file in the Town Clerk's Office. Said license is contingent upon the issuance of a certificate of good standing from the Rhode Island Division of Taxation, filing of a certificate of insurance evidencing required liability coverage, compliance with all town ordinances and regulations, the payment of any municipal taxes and user fees and arrears to the town, and the correction of any fire code violations. Mario, welcome again.
Thank you very much. Mario Martone on behalf of Global Spectrum LLP, and with me I have Leah Becky, the General Manager for the Ryan Center. So not to rehash what we've done, but I know this is a new public hearing. We may have new people who want to understand what's going on. This is an application for the Ryan Center to serve beer and wine during events that happen there. That could be anything from a concert to basketball games or any other events that they have there. It would only be beer and wine. It would be sold at specific areas on the concourse, which we have identified in our site map that was uploaded to Viewpoint. In order to purchase alcohol at the Ryan Center, you would have to show ID, and you would get a wristband. Anyone who is purchasing or getting liquor, so if you go up and me and Leah want to get a drink, and I order 2, both I need a wristband and Leah would need a wristband. So they've been doing that so far on the Class Fs, which is good because we have a trial period that we've been running this. It's been going excellent. And there have, knock on wood, there haven't been any issues. So the wristband would occur when you're purchasing alcohol. As far as staff on site, there will be 6 URI officers inside, 9 URI and South Kingstown officers who are outside doing traffic that eventually make their way inside. They also have 25 or so security plus other employees that are there on game days or event days. All of those people have been instructed to be monitoring the wristband situation, because what we don't want to have happen, what we know has happened in situations, is someone will go up, they'll get a beer, they walk out, and they pass it off to somebody else. So there's constant supervision of the patrons at the arena. They've been doing this already, and their plan is to continue to do that. Anybody that is found drinking without a wristband, they will, if necessary, be turned over to the South Kingstown or URI police. It would be a 2-drink maximum at a time. I can confirm that everybody that will be serving the liquor is TIPS or ServSafe certified, so they do know how to ID, and they also know what to look for as far as anybody who appears to be overly intoxicated. The guest to staff ratio is roughly 30-to-1. And there is kind of this common ratio that they talk about in nightlife, which is not arenas, but is in the general requirement or the general recommendation is 35-to-1. So they are under that. We think there's adequate eyes for the amount of patrons that would be coming to the facility. And if there are any issues, they can certainly modify where they're selling the beer and wine from or how that's being distributed. But as I stated, they've done this 11 times so far, and knock on wood, no issues. And it's been Their attendance, obviously, with COVID has been a little bit down, but they have had at least one game of 3,500. So it's not like it's really, really low attendance. They are serving, I think, what would be a typical amount of patrons, and to date there haven't been any issues. And they have done this in the past through other mechanisms with concerts where the attendance was higher. The only other thing, and I'm happy to answer any questions, the only other thing I did want to say is that this is significantly more common than uncommon. Just for the council's understanding, there are 14 teams in the A10. With URI up to this point, there are only 3 that were not serving at least beer and wine at their arena. And just to relay it to other universities and colleges that are in Rhode Island, both Bryant, who has a Division I basketball program, and PC, which has a Division I basketball program, they both serve at least beer and wine at their games as well. So it's not a situation where this is an unusual practice, certainly not for concerts and events, but even for the college basketball situation. So, like I said, I do have the general manager here. She's happy to answer any questions. I'll answer any questions if necessary. And so we would be requesting that, 1, you authorize the Class J, and 2, that you grant it to Global Spectrum.
Thank you, Mario. Any questions for Mario or Leah from the council?
I have a question for the assistant solicitor. Parameters on a Class J, are there any limitations on serving times or anything like that? And have we ever issued a Class J before? Even?
I can tell you that my understanding is there's only one other one in the state, and that's for the Dunkin' Donuts Center.
So it's in the packet on page 2.
Thank you. Yes, this Class J license is only for a specific category of facility known as a convention hall. So the Ryan Center qualifies, as does the Convention Center in Providence. The premises may be open for business on convention days between 11 a.m. and 1 a.m. The facilities must accommodate at least 500 people, so it's only available for large convention halls. The fee must be the same as the Class B license fee, and it does allow food service, as you know. So again, the hours of operation are 11 a.m. to 1 a.m.
Thank you.
So I was reading this just to make sure. So any event, you could, with this license, you would be able to serve alcohol at any of the events that you host, or the events that attendance is more than 500?
Oh, good point. I thought, my understanding was that it was any event.
Okay,
Any
event.
Thanks for asking. And we are still held to, outside of basketball games, of getting prior approval from the university leadership before we can serve alcohol at concerts and whatnot, too, which is important to mention.
Right, so I'm assuming you're most excited about serving it at the basketball games, but you have the ability to do it for, I know you hold concerts and you have, family weekend where you have like a comedian, so all those types of events you could potentially sell.
Exactly, yes, and we believe that will, help in ticket sales and bring people to the venue.
Yes, and Councilwoman Bergner, to clarify, the capacity restriction really just limits the kind of facilities that can qualify. And I don't know if roads on the Patuxent and Cranston might be another, but it has to be a large facility.
A large venue.
To even get in the door for the Class J license. But once the license is issued, the facility has that license to use kind of as they choose.
So what's weird about this, I'm just reading it, and it says, license shall be issued or held unless the licensee has adequate facilities to accommodate 500 or more persons at tables at one time. So that there are not tables for everybody at the Ryan Center. So does that matter? Because I know like the pub, I don't know, but the Roadie Pub, is that what it's called? That has tables, but does it matter?
My understanding is that you would have the ability to accommodate 500 people at tables if you wanted to do that. That's my understanding, and again, it's just my understanding. It's not a requirement that you actually do that for each event. But I think the idea is that you want a facility that is big enough that if you needed to, you could fit 500 people sitting at tables, because that does require significantly more space than if you just had 500 people milling around or hanging around.
Makes sense, because I'm thinking the Dunkin' Donut Center doesn't have tables for that many people either. It's just the language is interesting.
So any more questions from the members, now that we have Mario and Leah here? Deb?
So I just was looking at the map. Just, do you want to just talk about where it could be served?
So we have, now I have to recount it, I always have to do this in my head. We have about 8 areas in the venue that are like fixed areas that we would sell, but as in arena events, what you want to do is you don't want to have people crowding too much up on the concourse. Those of you that have been to the Ryan Center, it's very narrow. So we would open up satellite stands when we can, but we just tried to show you most of the areas of where we would have fixed stands, and then in a sold-out concert scenario, we would have additional satellite stands. But it's not only about serving alcohol, it's about serving food and just limiting the people crowding on the concourse.
All right, thank you, Leah. Thank you, Mario. This is a public hearing, so if anyone would like to comment on it, feel free to come to the microphone. Just identify yourself before you speak. Give a few moments to see if anyone has any interest on this item. Seeing none, do I hear a motion to close the public hearing?
Motion to close the public hearing.
I hear a motion and a second. Any discussion? Anyone opposed? All right, the public hearing is closed. At this time, we'll move down to business item 13A, which is a resolution affirming or amending the town's liquor license rules and regulations, Section 1, the current number of licenses for each class relative to authorizing a Class J convention hall limited liquor license and establishing a fee of $300 in accordance with Rhode Island General Laws 3-7-16, and amending the town's schedule of fees as further described in a memorandum from the town clerk, the interim town manager, dated February 23rd, 2022.
Motion to approve item 13A.
Second.
Hear a motion and a second. Any discussion? Anyone opposed? That motion passes. That'll bring us back to public hearing 7B. Do I hear a motion on this item?
Motion to approve item 7B. Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Anyone opposed? That motion passes. Congratulations. Good luck. That brings us to communications, item 8A. An email dated February 10, 2022 from Angela Tuoni tendering her resignation from the Sustainability Committee is received, placed on file, and the Town Council further directs.
I move that we accept Angela Tuoni's letter of resignation and send a letter thanking her for her service.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Anyone opposed? That motion carries. That brings us to 8C, which is an email dated February 18, 2022 from Steve Pinch, Chief of the Union Fire District, requesting to discuss an allocation of American Rescue Plan Act funds to the Union and Kingston Fire District is received, placed on file, and Town Council further directs. Steve Pinch, I believe you're in the audience tonight. If you'd like to come to the microphone. Obviously, you do admirable work for the town in terms of public safety. I know that you've sent a PowerPoint presentation to us. At this point, the council needs to discuss whether we'd like you to present or not. We definitely want to give you the ability to speak to us. It's a little premature in the process as to whether we're looking at presentations from outside agencies as far as funding for the American Rescue Plan at this time. So with that said, you can definitely speak on the matter. We'd like to hear from you right now.
Thanks, I appreciate it. Steve Pinch, Chief of the Union Fire District. Oh yeah, I'd go way back to when the previous town manager was here. When the American Rescue Funds became available, he had us into a couple of meetings, and we just wanted to make sure that we were still in the conversation, because during the 2 years of COVID, the members of our department, both Kingston and the Union Fire, stayed in with the town and responded to all the emergencies during COVID. And we would like to be able to, get some of those funds to do some long overdue things that we'd like to do within the district. When the previous manager was here, he had a good point of saying, like, it'd be nice to use the funds for something that could really benefit the town, but something that you wouldn't be able to do in your normal budget. So we would like that opportunity. We have some things in mind. We really just want to know where the council was with the funds and, where we should be, and if we could be in the conversation, we wanted to, not miss any of those opportunities.
Absolutely. And we have been working through a general framework as to the appropriation of certain monies, and allotment of money for outside agencies will be there. At this time, it's my opinion that I don't think it's sort of ripe right now for you to present a presentation to us. We'd like to do that sort of on a fairground system where we have all different outside agencies' ability to do that. That's my take. Does the council feel similarly? Go ahead, Deb.
I agree. I think it's really important that you are part of the discussion. However, we're not having the discussion yet. When we do, I'd really love to hear from you and see the PowerPoint. But at this point, I'd like to make a motion that we refer this correspondence or communication to staff, and we'll continue it at the appropriate time.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion?
Yes.
Go ahead, Deb.
So, if I'm remembering correctly, back when we discussed the American Rescue Plan, it was specifically said that you weren't eligible. So did something change? Because I remember, I thought that you were excluded from that. So maybe I'm misremembering it.
We are excluded. That's why we're here. We did not get any American Rescue Funds, so most of the fire districts in the state are asking the town, of which they're part of, that they provide the fire protection for to be able to help them with the American Rescue Funds. The districts were not granted any rescue funds from the federal government.
So I'm remembering correctly. They didn't
Yes.
allocate any money to any fire districts.
Correct.
So you're now asking us to consider taking care of some of your identifications.
Yes, because if you think about it, like, say, a neighboring town like Narragansett, the fire department's part of the municipal budget, so they have funds available to them through the American Rescue Funds. We don't. The fire districts were not granted any funds through that plan.
Steve, just to assure you, the motion right now, we're not ignoring your request.
Oh, no, I
We'll take it
understand.
seriously. We're just not at a point currently where we're able to entertain such requests. As we move forward in the process and get to a point where we will be getting requests and presentations from outside agencies, we will certainly entertain your presentation, and we hope you do come back.
No, I appreciate that, and all we wanted to do was just make sure we didn't want to come to you after you had already figured it all out. We wanted to make sure we were still in the conversation and that's something you would consider. So
Absolutely.
we're happy to come back whenever there's a good time for the council. So
Excellent.
appreciate your time. Thanks.
Thank you.
All right, so we do have a motion. We have a second. Any more discussion? Anyone opposed? All right, that motion passes. That brings us to 8E, which is a resolution adopted February 21, 2022 by the Woonsocket City Council in opposition to House Bill 2022 H6638, an act relating to towns and cities zoning ordinances that would prohibit single-family residential zoning in municipalities with populations greater than 20,000 and mandate that those municipalities adopt zoning regulations for middle housing in single-family residential zones is received, placed on file, and the town council further directs.
Make a motion that we place this on file and direct it to the planning staff for review.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion?
Yeah.
Yep.
So it's certainly, I heard about this out in the community and that people were concerned that we would stop building single-family homes. It doesn't make a lot of sense. I would want to make sure that we had clear talking points about why this isn't a good piece of legislation. It's confusing to me because one of the co-sponsors is a member of the delegation, so I'm not quite sure how that happened because I don't know if that person spoke to the town council or the town manager or anybody before signing on to that bill. So you're shaking your head.
No, just wanted to respond. This bill has been paused in committee, and that was at the request of the sponsor. I apologize. I did not see a sponsor.
On the Senate side.
Oh, on the Senate side. Okay, so
Not the House
this is
side,
the House
it's
bill.
the Senate side.
We do have an explanation that I can certainly forward to the town council. Our planning director did weigh in on this with information relative to how it would impact the town of South Kingstown.
So I think that the town of Burrillville may have written a similar letter disagreeing with the legislation, so I just wanted to make sure that you research that, and if you can't find that, Jamie, that you reach out, because I'll help you find that letter, because I'm concerned about what the law... I understand the intent to increase housing and the housing stock, but I don't know if that's the right approach.
Right.
Thank you.
All right, so we have a motion and a second. Any more discussion? Anyone opposed? All right, that motion passes. That brings us to item F, which is an email dated February 22, 2022, from David Cote concerning the town's plans with regard to the American Rescue Plan Act. Funding is received and placed on file. David, if you're here, feel free to come up and talk on this item.
Dave Cote, Wakefield. The EMS facility estimated by the town manager in the previous proposal of $1.1 million will most likely cost probably $3 million, if not $5 million, if done correctly. The builder will have their own program manager. The nonprofit social service grant of $425,000 could be more than double what you propose to give to the consultant at a total of, instead of $425,000, $917,800. And so I propose that the federal money, which must be obligated by December 31st, 2024, almost 3 years away, and spent by the end of 2026, almost 5 years away, that we take a pause and not commit to anybody, any consultant or anybody. We have 3 years. We have a new town manager being hired, so I asked the town council for a pause so we can evaluate it. And lastly, is it possible to get a copy of the presentation provided by the town council? I think you said that was going to be provided. I didn't see it on the site. The PowerPoint?
Last week?
Yeah.
It's a link on the agenda. So it's, if you go to the agenda in the item, there's a link there. You could go right to the PowerPoint.
Okay. So I didn't see that. So, and if we could get, is it possible to get a copy of the RFP?
I believe that is linked as well, but if it's not, we will certainly make sure that that gets linked to the agenda.
Right. Thank you very much.
Thank you, David.
Regarding that, I know that there's a American Rescue Plan page, and I was trying to find some of the documents. I think we need to make it a little bit more accessible to the community. It's hard to find the presentation and to scroll down to find the Excel spreadsheet with all the projects. It's buried deeper than probably the average person would like to dig. So if we could have staff take a look and try to make it more prominent, address some of the issues. I mean, it says click here to click the presentation, and then you click the presentation, and then you drill down 7, 10, 12 pages, whatever it is. So maybe just calling that out in a different way, like this is the list of tentative projects. I feel like the community is just now more aware of what the projects could be and might be, and might in August, or when we were doing this, maybe didn't understand the scope of what it was, and the nonprofits did, but maybe the outside community didn't really understand that. So
we can take a look at the
Thank you.
web page and try to make it more accessible so that people can access the information.
And just to go back for one quick second to the legislation piece, if Jamie sent a letter already, could we, no, he hasn't yet? Okay, when he does, could he please just make sure that we see the letter regarding?
Of course.
Thank you.
Motion to place item 8F on file.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Anyone opposed? That motion passes. That brings us to 8G, which is an email dated February 24, 2022, from William Salerno, tendering his resignation from the Assessment Board of Review, effective immediately, is received, placed on file, and the Town Council further directs.
Make a motion that we accept Mr. Salerno's resignation and send him a letter of thanks for his service.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Anyone opposed? That motion passes. That brings us to 8H, which is an email dated February 23, 2022, from Lori Marshall concerning a Homestead Exemption Act, is received, placed on file, and referred to the interim tax assessor for a response. Lori, if you're here, feel free to come up to the microphone and speak on this matter. Go ahead. Yeah, yep. Oh, that's not Lori.
So,
that's not Lori.
So
we were actually going to restrict communication at the microphone relative to this item to the person who sent in the communication.
Oh, okay. I thought you were moving the...
Sorry, I thought you were Lori Marshall, but my misunderstanding.
Because I'm going to stay until I get up anyway, so...
No problem.
Whether you hear me now or later.
So if Lori Marshall is not here, comments related to this can be deferred to the next item on the agenda, which would be comments from interested citizens.
So I asked that this be removed because I feel like a number of people had this question, and so when it comes here, we shouldn't just move it along and have the staff deal with it. I'd like to bring everyone's attention to it, that there are people asking about that. And I also didn't know when the tax assessor left, did we get something that I missed? I see that we have an interim tax assessor. I know Jean Bouchard retired. We had somebody else. But then I don't recall being notified that there was a new assessor. Did I miss that?
No, you did not miss it. That was an internal personnel item.
Okay.
And the tax assessor had to resign, and we, in the meantime, put in place an interim assessor.
So regarding the Homestead Exemption Act, I just don't want to respond just to Lori, because I think that we need it somewhere on a website that we can point to people to say, this is why we have it, or this is why we don't have it, or this is the process.
Sure. So the town of South Kingstown does not have a homestead exemption. We have several other exemptions, including the elderly tax exemption, the veterans exemption, which are all detailed on the assessor's website, but the town does not have a homestead exemption.
So next on the
Very
agenda
next.
would be comments from interested citizens, a perfect opportunity to raise whatever thoughts you have. So, do I hear a motion on this?
Could we
More discussion?
Sure, I motion to accept Lori Marshall's email and refer it to the interim tax assessor. I ask that the email that she sends be also copied to the council.
I hear a motion.
Motion.
Do I hear a second?
Second.
All right, there's a motion and a second. Any discussion? Anyone opposed? Item 9 is comments from interested citizens, which is the next thing on the agenda. At that point, you are free to come to the microphone and talk on any matter you would like. So that motion passes. That brings us to 9, which is comments from interested citizens. Anyone who does come up, please identify yourself before you speak.
My name is Martha, and I live in Wakefield, if you don't know me by now. I'm here because I'm kind of old now, and I just turned 85, and I almost had a heart attack when I got my assessment. I will say that this Mr. Mackey was absolutely wonderful with me today at 11:15. He was right on time, and he wasn't related with Barbara because I had a conversation with him knowing Barbara Mackey. Now, at 85, it's tough. It's tough out here. This is the toughest year I have ever had. I've lived here all my life. And before I go to heaven, I'd like to stay here because I don't know where I would go. Now, I have to wait about 6 weeks, but in that time, he told me to get an application here. Now I've been told, because I'm on the phone a lot to that town manager's office. Everybody knows me by my first name now and my sound of my voice. So if you can do anything. Now I know, I called one day wanting to speak to the tax assessor. Well, he retired. I said, oh, wow. So then I find out that there's a new one coming, and I thought that was wonderful because Liz was coming from Hopkinton. And what they did in Hopkinton, anybody over 85, they cut the tax right in half. Now, this last week, I find out she quit. Oh my, that's the one I wanted, is the one that quit, because I don't know why she quit, but she's pretty smart. Another thing on the exemption for the elderly. Now, I'm lucky I'm still here at 85. And many other older people maybe can't even drive here. I am very fortunate. The only problem I have, sometimes my legs don't want to go. That's why I bring my cane as my insurance. But my brain is not a sieve. And if there's anything you can do to up that 39,000 to maybe 44,000, that would be good. And anybody that's living until 85 should be able to pay half. Now, I have had no children all my life, and I don't mind paying taxes. But I want to make sure that the children are educated so they can pay taxes. It's that simple, folks, because if they're not educated well, they will not do good in their lifetime of working. Because without working, they're not going to have anything to be happy with. And we don't want to run out of money. Oh, by the way, has any of the federal money come into the town yet? Or are they holding it up in Washington? That was another question I had. I guess everybody's silent, so I guess there's no answer. I think that's all I have to say today. And thank you.
Thank you.
My name is Maureen Plunkett, and I've lived in South Kingstown for over 40 years. I love my community. I give back to my community. My husband does as well. We're both retired. I'm 70, he's 80. It was a pretty shocking how our taxes went up. And, I don't want to place blame or anything, but we have to have reality, okay? So we have New York, New Jersey, Connecticut. Have you seen Weekapaug with the, it's like the new Gilded Age of the 2022. So how can you compete with that? And then when you have an evaluation, somebody come in and evaluate, those houses, and say that somebody who doesn't have such a grand mansion is their taxes are going to be, have to, because of those people, our taxes go up. It's not right. It's not fair. Plus, I think that the elderly should, I don't mind paying taxes. Just like Martha said, I am so much for education. And so I don't mind paying taxes for that. I don't mind paying taxes at all, but it should be fair. It's like people don't want to just have $7.25 an hour. That's ridiculous, isn't it? Absolute. It's slave labor. And the wealth and inequality in this country is getting bigger and bigger and bigger, and it's disgusting. It really, really is. So, you know, the elderly, the seniors in this in South Kingstown, and I'm thinking of starting something like South County Seniors United or something. Because, no, seriously, because we're being forgotten. You know, we truly, truly are. We're being forgotten. And thank God she's 85 years old. My mother's going to be 97 in June. But, so there are a lot of us, thanks to technology and medical technology. I don't know whether that's good or bad. but anyway, we're living a lot longer. So we're here. We're here, and we shouldn't be considered a problem, or what are we going to do with them? When we've worked all our lives, and we've contributed all our lives, you know, to taxes, and we've been good citizens. I volunteer. I go to the Welcome House. I volunteer. My husband and I will go like every 4 to 6 weeks to BJ's and buy a whole bunch of food and drop it off. Sometimes I go there. I make sandwiches. My husband's a retired nuclear engineer. He's on the volunteer list to teach calculus at South Kingston High School if they need him, because we like giving back. You know, brought my children up to give back. My children always. My daughter lives in L.A. My son lives in New York now, but you know, they still consider Matunic their home. You know, they consider South Kingstown their home, and they have fond memories of it. I don't want to leave my community, but what? 36% it went up. The taxes from 2019? What? 36%. So anyway, I called the town hall. They don't want to talk to us. They told us to call this number, you know, this like cold number or something. We called last week. We got an appointment for 9 o'clock this morning. We called 9 o'clock this morning. I want to tell you that was a waste of time. It was frustrating and frankly insulting. The woman that I spoke with said, when I was telling her all these things, and it went up 36%. She said, well, in Maine, it's going all over the country. In Maine, they went up 57%. I said, so I should be lucky, feel lucky that I don't have to pay 57%? She said, well, I live in New Haven. I don't even live near the ocean. And she said, and my taxes went up a lot. And I said, I'm sorry, are you working? Who do you work for? She said, the government. We're a private, you know, organization that works for the government. I said, oh, and you're supposed to be helping me? And she said, yes. And I said, well, I don't want to hear your problems or Maine's problems. I'm worried about my problem. So, you know, it was like a waste of time. It really, really was. It was insulting. And it was just like, you're elderly, what are you going to do? That's life. Well, it's not just life. Because we have been good citizens, we've been good people, and we deserve to have a break. Just like they have rent control in New York City, they should have a cap when you get to be a certain age. And it shouldn't be 85, it should be a little younger than that. 80. We should have a cap on it. You know, we really should, because what are older people going to do? You know, good anymore? You're just a drain on society? I mean, that's what Trump thinks. That's what, you know, these people, you know, who don't want to be bothered. If you can't make money and pay taxes so they can steal it from you, then, you know, you're not any good. And that's the way we feel. And you know what? That's wrong. And also the $39,000 cap. Seriously. I mean, that's like unbelievable. Who can live on that? Seriously. I know some people do.
Excuse me, you raised valid points. I don't mean to interrupt you, but we do like to limit it to 5 minutes.
Okay, my husband wants to come.
Thank you.
My name is Mike Plunkett. I will surely limit my things to 5 minutes. I think my wife said a lot. And Martha, what you said, you speak the truth. It was very good. You know, what's happened here is our tax rate went up by 36%, and I've lived here for 70 years.
Sir, just to correct the record on your statement there, your assessment of the value of the property went up by 36%.
The assessment.
But that doesn't exactly correlate to an increase in the tax bill.
No, I understand that, but it surely will go up. It
There's
will.
only, by statute, the town can only raise the tax levy by 4% over the prior year. So
Well,
just to give
our
you some more
assessment
information.
went up by 36%.
Understood.
And what's happening here, like Maureen said, you know, people from New York and Connecticut and Boston and Massachusetts, they come to good old Rhode Island, which is a beautiful state. We love it here, for the beaches, and they see the natural resources, and they purchase houses at exorbitant rates. I mean, $800, $900, $1 million. You know, I don't have any problem with somebody coming from New York paying $800,000 for a house and paying fair taxes on that. But what's wrong is that you use those house values, those sell values, to increase our taxes. That's wrong. That's wrong. There should, like Martha said, there should be some sort of cap on people that have lived here for 40, 50 years, and they're senior citizens on a fixed income. It's not right. It's really not right. The equation is wrong. Like I say, if you come in here from New York and paying $1 million for a piece of property, pay your taxes. But we want to stay here in South Kingston. And if this equation keeps going, we're going to be forced to move. We won't be able to afford to be here. So it's wrong. It should be changed.
Thank you.
Could I just say one? So just so folks understand who are watching, the assessment is one piece of taxes that goes into the formula. The tax rate hasn't been raised in town in 3 years. So your taxes, if you haven't made improvements to your property, haven't gone up in the past 3 years. So the assessment goes up, but what will happen is automatically what the assessor has to do is reconfigure the tax rate given the new revaluation. So they're going to look at, you know, overall the tax base of the town has gone up 37, 40% even maybe. So they're going to see that, and they have to automatically readjust the tax rate. So if it was $14.50 cents this past year, it's going to automatically ratchet down to $11.50 this year. So your tax bill will actually be the same this year as next year. Just that's the way the assessment process works.
So last year's budget passed 3-2. This council voted 3-2 to level fund the schools, which resulted in no tax increase to the community. They used some money from the undesignated fund to work on the spending increase, but so that budget passed 3-2. We will be very soon, starting Thursday, going back into the budgeting process. I invite you to participate and speak because usually people don't say a lot, and it's really important to hear from people who care about living here and contributing. The thing to think about is this. So if the town operates on $55 million, if we take less from seniors, we have to get the other money from the other group. So it shifts the burden to whoever's left. Also think about in South Kingstown, we're aging. I'm closer to your age than Rory, right? And so we're already aging, so more and more people could then be wanting that same thing, and then it shifts to the younger people. So it's hard. It's a hard place to be. Like, I hear what you're saying, and it breaks my heart to think that people would have to sell their home because they couldn't afford to live here, and I mean that honestly. But it's hard as someone who sits here to say we could shift it to someone who's 40 years old and have that burden be to them. So it's important that the community participate in the process and we come together to come to the right decision. So I just wanted to explain a little bit, and I don't know if that helps you kind of understand the homestead piece or the senior tax break. We did last year raise the elderly tax abatement, the lowest income. We moved it up so that, well, no, the bottom. We made sure that the bottom, the lowest seniors got a larger tax increase. We eliminated a couple of the income levels. So we are aware of that. We also are aware of how many people take advantage of that. So if we raise the income, how many more people come under that umbrella, and then there's implications for that.
Oh, ma'am, if you could
Come back, because no one will hear you, Maureen.
If the council wouldn't mind, can we add this?
I want to say that,
Before you speak, ma'am, if we continue this, we'd have to add this
Motion
to the
to
agenda
add
for
this to
discussion
the
purposes.
agenda.
I don't know what you're saying.
We're doing our processes, so
okay.
we can't go back and forth with you without adding it to the agenda. Motion to add this discussion to the agenda. Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Anyone opposed? All right, this motion passes.
Thank you. I think it also affects young families. I mean, young families just starting off, young couples that's starting a family, they're not going to be able to afford to come to South Kingstown. We have wonderful schools here. And I firmly am a supporter of the public school system, and we have a wonderful school system here. But the people who just come here for 2 or 3 months out of the year, they don't care about the school system. They don't care about the senior center. They don't care really about the local businesses. Only when they're here. And they'll come in and shop at them. But other than that, it's the people who live here and who have lived here for years and years, who grew up here. My husband's been here since he was a child, So, young families are also going to be not going to be able to be in South Kingstown. So what's going to happen then? What's going to happen to the school system and young families that won't be able to enjoy this community, which is a lovely, beautiful community. I mean, it's a safe, beautiful community, and I just love living here. But it's not only seniors. You're going to lose a lot of young people and a lot of children. So I just want to make that point as well.
Thank you.
Thank you. So I think he's asking about the homestead.
Sir, if you're going to speak, you got to go to the microphone. So just to clarify with legal counsel right now, the motion that's on the table right now that we've passed, what does that entail? Discussion relative to
The Homestead Act.
Taxes or in general, which includes Homestead Act discussion?
I think the public comment is centering about a homestead exemption and tax relief for senior citizens, so I think that's what you've approved discussing.
Got it. All right. Go
Yes.
ahead, sir.
And I guess my question is simply, why doesn't South Kingston have the Homestead Act? Most of the counties in Rhode Island have it. Why don't we have it?
Sir, generally we don't engage in Q&A, but I will answer this question. We've had discussions with the past town manager at the time as to whether a Homestead Act would work in this sort of town.
Yeah.
Currently, SK, 20% of the homes are owned by non-residents, whereas a neighboring town like Narragansett, it's 50% owned by non-residents. So in a town like Narragansett, it's a lot easier to apply it and make it work and have an effect on residents and allowing them tax relief. It's not as easier in South Kingstown. In order to make it work without having the town lose revenue and have to reduce services, we would have to potentially classify taxes between corporate taxes and residential, which would increase the taxes on the businesses. So it's something we've considered, it's something we've contemplated, but the discussion is not done. A new town manager will come in here, and hopefully discussions will continue there, because I agree with you. I think there's potential, and we should explore it more.
Yeah. Okay. And also, like was mentioned prior to this, the elderly tax, the tax exemption surely should be greater than $39,000. I mean, it just should be raised. I understand that you're losing revenue from it, but again, senior citizens that are on Social Security, they need a tax break. They need some sort of break here. They really do. Thank you.
Thank you.
Can I say one thing? Can I say one more thing?
Ma'am, we have kind of limited this piece of the item that we've opened up to this specific thing here. This is not really open for public comment, unless you can keep it brief and specific.
I'm going to keep it brief, yeah.
All right, thank you.
You young people have to understand what happened to me. After 24 years, I was working, and they get rid of the whole department because we were all either 70 or above. That's the problem this year, because I've seen a lot of people. I've been on interviews. They say, well, they told me in Narragansett, they said, well, we got 2 76-year-olds. Well, I thought I was in. That was when I was 84. No, they don't want old people. Because the thing of it is, research has brought us to the point where I'm living too long. And so they figured get rid of all of the old people out of the workforce, and that's what happened. And that's why I'm just talking for myself now, I am having a very difficult time to pay the taxes, the fees, the fire, the water, the whatever, the sewer, anything. And I don't have sewer. Yeah, I do have sewer. Pay for, and it's only a little bit. But then you put the gas and the food and the everything else. You see, you young people have to realize that you're going to be as old as I am sometime. And it's about time that you guys up there understand. Once you understand it, and then paying $25,000 to $26,000 to educate a child, and they can't even make a living so that you can get your money.
Thank you. All right, at this time I'll entertain a motion. Or,
There's another, just some board comments.
well, didn't we?
Close this discussion? Doesn't
Oh, we don't need a motion. All right, we're still in comments from interested citizens, so if anyone would like to speak, feel free to come to the microphone and just identify yourself before you do.
Yes, how you doing? My name is Keila Ayala. And just basic on the comments here on the Homestead Act or whatever everybody's talking about here, I think maybe what's happening is there's a lack of possibly producing some educational material to explain to people that the new tax assessment is not like a huge amount of what money is going to be taken out, like added to it. A lot of people are freaking out. As you were mentioning before, it's a certain percentage of only what you said, 4% that could possibly be increased from that tax assessment, correct? Or the appraisal, whatever it was, correct?
So that's a state law that restricts the town from having a levy that is 4% higher than it was the prior year. So it's not on an individual property level. It's actually a town cumulative level. But as Abel Collins was saying, the increase in the assessment of the value of the home does not correlate to an increase in the property tax bill. What will naturally happen is the tax rate will have to go down to adjust it so that the revenue raised from the taxes throughout town based on the new assessment will be at the same amount that it was before. Then it will be a council level decision as we go through the budget process as to what tax rate we set for the following fiscal year.
That sounds great, super long, but how can that be simplified to somebody else who maybe not understand that specifically?
So we do have FAQs on the town's website, and it's a good source to just sort of get basic information about the reassessment. But Terry Murphy, go ahead.
I was just going to reiterate that. We also have hard copies, paper copies of those frequently asked questions and explanations surrounding the revaluation and how it relates to someone's property value versus what the tax rate will be. The tax rate will come down. We have that on the website. We have paper copies in almost every office in the building as well.
And I see that just, I have a lot of neighbors who are my age. I'm actually from South Kingstown. I went to high school here. I received an amazing education. I also went to university. And then now I've been able to, luckily, be able to stay in this town and work in this town. And essentially, other people here in this saying, hey, look, the town is going to screw us this year with all these tax rates. I understand people are worried about it or freaking out, but I think, again, maybe a fairly simple question and answering of what you have there for a list of questions people are having, but maybe providing in that note just a simplification is like, hey, do you know there is a question and answer, or just saying this is what this means. So the majority of people, when they read this, they don't just go and put the middle finger to the town saying, hey, why is my house being increased? Why everybody else from New York is, buying their houses and now I'm not going to be able to live here? Because I've had plenty of kids who can't live here, who I went to high school with, and kids who do live here who are already complaining about that. But maybe that education to other people who maybe not be able to understand what it is you're writing or looking at your question and answers to your town hall, be able to be provided to people who receive letters like that. And I'm kind of just basing this on this conversation I'm listening to, just very interesting. That just seems like something needs to be done, I think, instead of doing, crazy other stuff. Just provide simple education to people, what it is that means that they've received in the mail.
Understood. You raised great points. Thank you. Deb?
I do agree with you, and I think also because they came out in mailboxes on Friday and Saturday of a 3-day weekend, people had a lot of time to be very upset and not be able to get answers at town hall until Tuesday. So that was also, I don't think any news should, drop on a Friday when people then are gone for 2.5, 3 days. So I do agree that the timing wasn't particularly good, because I've heard from the community that that was also upsetting, that they couldn't call town hall right away and they worried. So, we need to do a better job of educating and communicating, and I think we're trying to do that. I mean, by law, we're mandated to do evaluations every 3 and so many years. So it's not that we choose to do it. We're mandated by law to do a full and a statistical and all that according to the law.
Thank you.
I do just want to say that the letter that came with the assessment did mention all of those things, right? The letter says it's May before you're going to know what your taxes are. Do not correlate this with the current tax rate. It says it in the letter. I understand it's an emotional thing when someone gets that and your property value went up $100,000. You should be happy that your property went up $100,000 because your taxes are not going to go in the same at the same incremental rate as that. And I think the letter says that. I think people just, because it is so emotional, people have a knee-jerk reaction. Oh my God, I'm going to pay $1 million in taxes.
I'm not saying this. I did read the letter in the fine print, and I understand it. What I'm trying to let you know is it seems there's a lot of people, not just maybe people in this room, in the community who do not understand that. They may be able to look at something. It's just like you go down, and in Peacedale Elementary School, it's a 20-mile-an-hour driving area, yet you have college students every day going 30 to 40 miles an hour, all right? That's clearly 20-mile-an-hour zone. Is someone there to do anything about it? No, maybe they need education about it, okay? Same thing. You have town sidewalks not shoveled, right? We have ordinance about shoveling snow. We don't enforce it, okay? This is just, again, just because it's there doesn't mean we should educate our town and the people who are here, or maybe the people who are going to be following your footsteps and paying your tax increase when you get older. So let's start now with the younger generation, maybe not be reading that piece of paper, or maybe somebody who's older who doesn't understand what they received in the mail, and giving some kind of basic education of either holding something for them and explain to them what that means. Because you may be able to read it, doesn't mean you understand it. Thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate your time. Before you go again, sir, we'd just like to give people an opportunity to speak first before they go again. Roberto, I see.
Thank you. Roberta Mulholland, 161 Matunic Schoolhouse Road. I just want to say, this young man, it's great to see young people here, and he's exactly right. You as a town council need to be proactive. A nice page in the paper, a nice something else, a little note in with the envelopes, simple language explaining to people. You had to know it was coming out. And if you didn't know it's coming out, I'm not sure what that's all about. Okay, so why I'm here is that I attended the Board of Wardens at the Union Fire District meeting by Zoom last week, 22nd. I was looking for another meeting. I happened to see that meeting. It was by Zoom. I don't like to go out at night, so I went and I owed them a long overdue thank you for the fantastic services they provide all of us. But in particular, on Thanksgiving morning, a very dear friend of ours collapsed on our property. And the first person there was a South Kingstown police officer. The second was, I believe, Engine 18 from Matunic. And that is right down the street from where we live. I was opening the gate, so I was never more happy to see how fast these young people got off the truck and ran as I pointed them toward the police car because this person was up in the woods. Many people responded, more Union Fire District, more police, DEM. And eventually we got a South Kingstown ambulance. And the only reason we got a South Kingstown ambulance was because of just a confluence of God's grace that an ambulance had come back to the station. They were in the dispatch room with a police officer who knew our address, who happened to hear Browning Farm because the person calling 911 didn't know our number. He told the ambulance who had just come in where it was. He came, escorted her. They got there. They saved our friend's life. This was very soon after I'd been here a couple of times listening to people, a very few people, a handful of people who have moved here recently from out of state, objecting to an EMS at the Matunic Fire Station. Objecting to an EMS on a municipal site that's been a municipal site for a long, long time. People objecting who had moved to that fire station, moved within feet of that fire station. I can't throw that far. I could hit that fire station from that house or across the street from that fire station. And I couldn't believe that I was listening to a council turn their attention away from the plan that they knew was being made, a plan that improved the environmental impact of that site right now, with the improvements of the new fire station and the EMS. It has a positive environmental impact. It needed minuscule variances. The rest of their arguments were just disingenuous about people walking and children walking on the Matunic Schoolhouse Road. But as I'm listening to the fire district, the chairman reads a note, email letter from Mike Ursillo providing notice that you have abandoned EMS at Matunic Schoolhouse Road at the fire station. I don't have the quote right now, but Mr. Ursillo said he was authorized to advise the Board of Engineers that the EMS is not going to be located at the Matunic Fire Station. So I had seen your executive sessions about dealing with real estate. I knew the land trust was involved. And I had gone back and watched your February 14th meeting where objectors, I think 5 objectors had written to you, and you didn't substantively address anything that they wrote. You talked about having a website built with information for the people on Ministerial Road, that you're considering destroying a piece of open space, historically open agricultural field on that spot, on a scenic road that is a designated scenic road in our town. Across the street from historic homes, generational families living in that area, people who did not move to a fire station, people who have lived there for generations, decades upon decades upon decades, who are going to have a emergency facility slapped down on that agricultural field. I heard about the private meeting at the land trust with whoever got invited. And I just can't believe that you never notified all the people in Matunic, on Matunic Schoolhouse Road, for maybe a private meeting in here with you, I mean public, to find out what the rest of Matunic and Green Hill thought about putting that fire station, that EMS, behind that fire station. And I'm very disappointed. I'm so disappointed in your asking, is it the ideal situation, as if there's an ideal situation for anything, an ideal location. But you're actually considering, you entered into an agreement to buy property, agricultural property, historic agricultural property, to put this building on. And you're buying it from the land trust, which council upon council has spent our tax dollars and given it to the land trust under the guise that they are preserving open space, forest, and agricultural land in perpetuity.
Roberta, I don't mean to cut you off, but you are past the 5 minutes.
I'm just really disappointed. I'm disappointed that you want to have a meeting, an informational meeting for the people at Ministerial, and I hope you notify them. I hope you personally notify them. I hope you put big signs up on that property. I hope you don't try to sneak in what they shouldn't have to bear the burden of.
because they did not move to that municipal site. The people who moved next to the fire station, they bought that property. They paid a discounted price, we all know, because who's buying the house next to the fire station? So I hope you think their homes are as beautiful. And I'd like you to look at that historic home across from that field, and that's a beautiful home, as is the beautiful historic home on the corner. It's a beautiful historic area. And I won't even get into the safety issues about that Four Corners. Thank you.
Thank you. Let me just ask if anyone else would like to come up and speak for the first time who hasn't spoken yet. Go ahead. Just like to give the others an opportunity before you come up a second time.
Hi, Roland Benjamin from Wakefield. I want to we're getting into the first couple days of the real budget cycle, and this is going to drive the tax conversations and the spending conversations as it does every year. You know, I've followed this pretty closely since I've been involved, and the conversation seems to always drift towards taxes, which is revenue side. Rarely really addresses spending, almost never, and that's what's driving all of our spending up. We're coming up on this budget in a way that I've really never seen here. Normally in January of a budget year, or of any year, there's a review of the audit of the prior fiscal year. To my knowledge, I haven't seen that linked. I know it wasn't linked on the school committee agenda, which it normally, when I was serving on the school committee, we reviewed that audit for the prior fiscal year in the first meeting of January. To this point, it hasn't shown up on the school committee side. I don't know if it's even been made available to you yet. Additionally, we know school spending is 3/4 of our property tax spending anyway. In a current fiscal year that we're in, historically, we've watched a monthly update be posted to an agenda on that spending so that it could be tracked, so that the bodies responsible for that spending and for apportioning that spending can review this as it goes. So the current fiscal year, we have not seen anything. I have not seen a financial update since April of 2021, except for one that I asked for by APRA back in June of last year. In the current budget cycle, normal practice has been from the schools to see, at this point in the process, at least the third iteration of a detailed budget, not a single presentation with one line item, but full detail of this types of spending that we're going to see in these things. And they'll have a committee back and forth discussion with their administration to come up. They'll have at least 1 or 2 meetings with the council before they approve in February. At this point, other than in a small subcommittee that didn't share the output digitally, there hasn't been any detailed budgets shared with the community. So we're talking about now coming into another budget cycle with 3 years of spending having seen almost no review by the committee or the council. We haven't seen an audit for fiscal year 21. We haven't seen interim updates for fiscal year 22. And we haven't seen a detailed budget outside of the top-level appropriations for fiscal 23. We're going into this cycle almost blind, which is fine if your priorities are we don't care about spending. And that's the message that's being sent right now, that our bodies do not care about spending. And as a result, we're going to have people concerned about 34% evaluations because we don't trust this process. We saw what happens when the process isn't trusted by the facility vote that just happened 6 or 8 months ago. No one trusted what that spending was going to be about. And we're dangerously approaching that now. We're looking at another big spending increase, a per pupil spending increase that's significantly outpacing even the ridiculous inflation we're feeling right now. So we're talking about now, Martha said 25, 26. We're going to be pushing 28 depending on what you approve. So as the budget cycle comes forward, it's been a long time since I've been able to stand at a microphone without a mask. And I'm happy to do that, and I want you to know that there's people that are very concerned, more than ever, about the lack of transparency in this process this particular year. So thanks.
Thank you.
So we are meeting on Thursday, and I just wanted to ask, could we get a financial update from the school committee ahead of time before our meeting? And is the audit available? And could we please have that as well? Because we have not received that.
I will request of the school committee to have something prior to Thursday. They will be presenting their proposed budget on Thursday evening at the work session with council. And we do have a finalized audit report, which was just recently finally completed. So the council will be also notified of that.
May I ask that if it's possible to get it before Thursday? It is very challenging for those of us who work a full-time job to then digest those materials at 4 o'clock on a Thursday or 20 minutes before the presentation.
I can certainly get you the audit. I cannot promise the school department's
financial update.
Financial update.
So if anyone else would like to speak for the first time, feel free to come up. If not, sir, go ahead.
I will admit, when I first came into this room, I was very confused about the tax rates. But I think you gave us the answer. You said that the town of South Kingston has a mandate not to increase property taxes by a certain percent. Did you say that?
Yes, 4%.
So my taxes can't increase more than 4%.
Well, it's not on an individual property level. It's on a cumulative of all properties in the town level. So when you say the tax levy, for example, let's just say it's $100 million.
Yeah.
That can't increase to $104 million the next year.
Right.
That's the max it could go.
So that's the end of story. That's fine. If we had have all said that in the first place, that would be. The thing is, this assessment thing was very confusing. Mm-hmm. But if you say that the town of South Kingston has a mandate that they can't increase their taxes by more than 4%, their property taxes by more than 4%, fine. Am I correct by assuming that?
The way you're saying it, it makes it seem like you think it's on an individual property level.
No, I know. You're saying the total property tax in the South Kingston, Rhode Island can't increase more than 4%.
Cumulatively correct.
Cumulative, and that's shared throughout the thing. That's fine. Oh, yeah, that's great.
Hi, my name is Greg Sweet. I'm not sure if I'm understanding it correctly about the 4%. That's going to depend on what the average assessment value is. Like someone who's going up 90% and the average is, say, 30, he's going to be paying more than 4%, correct?
Yes.
Could I just clarify? The 4%, it's a state law that the tax levy cannot increase by more than 4% of the previous year.
Yep.
So everyone's tax assessments, they could be different. One person could have a 25% increase on their assessment. Someone else could have a 50% increase on their assessment. The tax rate will go down depending on what your assessment is, will determine how much your taxes are. But the tax levy, the entire tax levy for the town cannot increase by more than 4%.
Correct, but if the average increase is, say, 20%, and yours is up 35, then theoretically his would be up 35 plus possibly the 4%, if that's what the budget.
No, it's not in addition to 4%. It depends on everyone's individual assessment. So once a tax rate is set, which will be lower than the $14.45 per thousand, people can then go and look at their new assessment and calculate their taxes based on what the new tax rate is, which will be lower.
So you're saying nobody is going to be higher than 4%?
No, I cannot say that. If someone's assessment went up by 100% and doubled, I cannot say
Right,
that.
and that's what I'm
But
saying.
the average, I will tell you, the average increase in assessment is hovering around 30%, 25 to 30%.
So people higher than that are going to be paying obviously more.
Right. We don't have those numbers yet until
No, I know.
until a tax rate is established.
So it could be more.
So, can we go?
Help him. Because
Sir, ma'am, if you're going to speak, you got to come to the microphone.
may be educational for everybody, because I happen to see a post that if mine is 100%, I mean, it's doubled. So because mine is doubled, I'm going to be in the upper. In other words, my taxes can go up, but if his and his wife's is down under the 50%, then he's going to pay less, but I'm going to pay more because mine shot up. Do you get it now? In other words, just take an example. Use me. I got over 50% higher in my assessment. I'm going to pay more, but if he went down to 35%, he's going to pay less. That's one of our members that taught me something on a post.
So,
Go ahead, Deb.
to speak to this whole process, we were not informed that the letters were going out on Friday of the long weekend, nor we don't really have like a summary, an executive summary of the findings of the reevaluation. Like, we didn't get the average home went up 32%. You could see, by geographic, like, we don't have any data other than our own homes or other homes that people share us with. So it's hard not to have a large view. Like, Martha, I hear you. Like, you live probably at Matunic, Green Hill, something where probably saw a doubling. And I don't know what the in-town looks like. I don't know, because we didn't get that either. So to speak to that, we don't have the information, and then we look. I didn't know. I knew we approved the evaluation process months ago, and I knew it was happening, but we did not have advance notice that the letters would be hitting the mailboxes Friday, Saturday. Did you?
There was a posting on the town website that indicated there was an announcement that the revaluation notices would be going out to the public. Yes.
All right, we're still in comments from interested citizens. If anyone else would like to speak, feel free to come to the microphone. Just first identify yourself.
Mulholland, when did you vote to abandon the EMS at Matunic?
Legal counsel, are we allowed to answer that question?
The discussions on this matter took place in executive session. I understand, and as you and the public may know, matters concerning the acquisition of property are allowed to be discussed and voted on in executive session. I'm not sure whether the matter is concluded yet, so I would recommend commenting on this until such time as the matter has been concluded.
Well, if you took a vote in executive session, you should have come out and reported it. You should have at least said, we took a vote. So I can't find that in your minutes. And secondly, with regard to exemptions to the Open Meetings Act, I would like a town council who firmly believes inside in the spirit of the Open Meetings Act, the spirit of it. There's a modifier after that exception for dealing with real estate. There's a modifier. You were dealing with the South Kingstown Land Trust. This wasn't something on the open market. How could it have hurt your position to speak about that in public? It's the land trust. There was no reason to have that in secret. That was a choice made to have that in secret. So I would ask that when you make the decision to go into executive session, that you look at the exemption, that you read the exemption, that you understand the exemption, and always keep in mind the spirit of the Open Meetings Act, which is to do the public's business in public.
You have had a lot of executive sessions. You don't always have to have them. Just because you can doesn't mean you should. Choose to do the right thing. Do as much of the public's business in public. You would have a lot more trust of the public. Thank you.
Thank you. All right. Seeing no one else willing to speak here, comments from the citizens, we will move on to the town manager's report.
Just a couple of items for the council this evening. One is a reminder that the budget FY 22-23 budget work sessions will begin this Thursday evening. That is a work session that begins at 6:30 with the town council and the school committee on the proposed school budget. There is another session on March 7th, Monday, March 7th at 6:30 as well, and that is to discuss the municipal departmental budgets, and then on March 9th, which will be for outside agencies. We also have a couple of things related to South Road School testing site. As I had mentioned in a previous email, the state will be closing the South Road School testing site as of March 31st. That is when the lease with the town ends for that as a COVID-19 testing site. The next closest state site is the Wickford train station. And you may have noticed in the news recently that most of those sites will be open for appointments for folks who are experiencing symptoms of COVID-19, and that people are encouraged to receive or take at-home tests. The town does have a supply of free at-home COVID tests, and those are available at town buildings here at Town Hall, at the Recreation Center, the Senior Center, the libraries, and the Neighborhood Guild. So residents can stop into any one of those facilities to pick up their free at-home COVID-19 testing kits. Trying to see if there's anything else that I need to update you on. Just a couple of pieces of positive news. We did have a wastewater superintendent receive an award from the New England Association of it's New England Water Environment Association, and Kathy Perez, who is our wastewater superintendent, received that award for 2022. And it is called the Alfred E. Peliquin Award for the state of Rhode Island. So we're happy to announce that. I would also announce that the Highway Division recently received a safety grant from the Rhode Island Interlocal Trust, which they had applied for to put towards improved safety mechanisms within the Highway Department operations. And you are aware of reevaluation. We've spoken about that. And we are currently in the process. Vision Appraisal is the contractor who is handling inquiries and appeals from any citizen who is interested in information or has questions about their assessments. And there are appointments available online. If the number of appointments fill up, that Vision Appraisal will allow for more appointments to be scheduled so that everyone can be accommodated for scheduling an appointment to ask questions about their assessments. So that is ongoing. That's through that's through March 10th for now, but it is likely that will continue a bit longer.
Thank you, Terry. Any questions for the manager?
Sure. So Terry, the budget is due on March 1st. Will we get it tomorrow? Okay.
Council will receive the FY 22-23 proposed budget tomorrow.
Okay, great.
Per the charter.
Yep.
Any other questions for the manager? All right, we'll move to the town solicitor's report.
Amy Goins, Assistant Town Solicitor. I'm going to defer an update on the town manager search until Mike arrives back from vacation. He's handling that matter. Regarding the other listed item, update on the Open Meetings Act complaint filed against the council by L. Nordzi. Our office received that last week. We're handling a response as usual.
Thank you, Amy. That brings us to 12 appointments.
I'll make a resolution appointing Ken Monroe to the Assessment Board of Review for a term to expire. When does it expire? 3 years from now.
Second.
Hear a motion and a second. Any discussion? Anyone opposed? All right, that motion carries.
Make a resolution to appoint Kate Sullivan and Susan Axelrod to the 300th Anniversary Celebration Committee.
Second.
Hear a motion and a second. Any discussion? Anyone opposed? All right, that motion carries.
Make a motion to move Brad Heavenor from the alternate position to the Assessment Board of Review.
Second.
Hear a motion and a second. Any discussion? Anyone opposed? All right, that motion carries.
Yeah, we appoint Bo Brown. And then Bo Brown. Russell Bo Brown. Make a resolution to appoint Russell Bo Brown to the Zoning Board of Review to replace Casey Chatterwick, who's resigning, or when he resigns. Yes.
Second.
Mm-hmm.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Anyone opposed? All right, that motion carries. That brings us to item new business 13B, which is a resolution continued from January 24 and February 14, 2022, authorizing an award of contract to Weston and Sampson of Foxborough, Mass. For professional consulting services related to the American Rescue Plan Act, Local Fiscal Recovery Fund, in an amount not to exceed $492,800, including a $20,000 contingency, as detailed in the amended proposal, as further described in a memorandum from the interim town manager to the town council, dated January 19, 2022.
Motion to approve item 13B.
We have a motion. Second. A second. Any discussion? I know that Terry and Jamie had planned to just go briefly through a presentation, just to inform the public as to where we are. I'd still like to see it. But there is a motion on the table.
We have a few slides in an attempt to address a few questions that came up last month. So if you bear with me while I log on.
And while Jamie's doing that, if I could just note that the agenda does have the RFP and the proposal, the vendor's proposal, linked to the agenda item, if anyone is interested in seeing that document.
Yeah.
While Jamie is pulling up the slides, just as a recap of this particular recommendation, this is with regards to awarding a contract to Weston and Sampson for consulting services that are basically umbrella services to assist the town with execution of the disbursement of the American Rescue Plan Act dollars that are coming to the town. That's $8.95 million to South Kingstown. The council back in August adopted a framework for the spending of those funds. In the meantime, there was one modification with regard to reallocation of $1.1 million for the emergency services facility to be constructed. At this time, the recommendation or the the proposal includes consulting services that are multidisciplinary in terms of being able to allow for a firm that specializes in federal grant management and monitoring. We have that particular subcontractor under the Weston and Sampson proposal that specializes in that type of funding. And we are proposing this particular contract because we do have a multifaceted approach through Weston and Sampson. We will be monitoring social service grants through this process, in addition to the numerous infrastructure proposed projects that focus primarily on economic recovery, which includes Main Street and other villages within town that will benefit from the funds that are being received by the town. But I think Jamie is ready to go for a brief overview.
Thank you, Councilman. We have a number of slides tonight. A lot of them are similar, so I'm not going to spend much time on those. Terry Murphy and I spent a lot of time in the last 2 weeks trying to understand the council's questions, how we provided the information to you initially, and how we can potentially present that information in a more readily digestible format. So I'm just going to move down pretty quickly. This is all of the things with regards to the federal program. Primary slide that we dealt with last month was with Weston and Sampson, and that they put a multidisciplinary team together between Weston and Sampson internally with landscape architects, civil engineers, specialize in urban redevelopment, wayfinding, transportation, traffic, pedestrian, complete streets. They've also brought on board Union Studios, and the actual team member there is Donald Powers. He is a registered architect and the founder of that company, as well as CF Corporation and RKG. Just quickly, and I know you have the tasks in your packet. This was a breakdown of the 6 tasks that are in their proposal, the costs associated with those proposals, a pie chart that breaks those down. Again, the contract was $492,000 and change. That represents 5.8% of the total $8.95 million program. What we talked about initially was how does that relate to other programs on the federal and state level? If you look at the upper range of a typical federal highway program, they allow for upwards of 40% of what are called soft costs. That's construction oversight, design, and permitting. We are not proposing 40%, and neither is Weston and Sampson. On the upper realm, lower range of that, the federal government accepts 20%, which would be 5% permitting, 10% design, and 5% construction oversight, which would leave you 80% left for hard costs, your actual construction or program initiative. What that equates to in the example of a higher range project that was budgeted at $1 million, you would have hard costs left of $600,000, and your soft costs, which equate to 40%, would eat up $400,000 of that budget. If we look at a less conservative approach and with 80% construction, 20% soft costs, you would have $800,000 for construction, and the rest or soft costs would eat up $200,000. Weston and Sampson's program, again, was based on the adopted program that the town council went through, initially adopted in July of 2021, revised in December of 2021 to include the emergency management service building, budgeted at $1.1 million. And when that was added to the council's new prerogatives, the adjustments were made to the other line items there. So again, village, downtown, both public and private investments were reduced, nonprofit investments were reduced, hiring was reduced, government services, because you have already initiated some of those activities, that was reduced slightly, but that wasn't a large section of the pie that could be reduced. I want to just quickly focus on the two initiatives, the village, downtown, both public and private. That equates to roughly 5.5 million of the 8.95 million. If you equated the model of taking 40% of soft costs and leaving 60% of construction in that $5.5 million program, you would only have 3.274 million left. If you looked at the 80-20 model, you would have roughly 4.3 million left for construction, and almost $1 million would be equated to soft costs, permitting, design, and construction oversight. And in our categories, those are they're not permitting and they're not necessarily construction oversight, but they're program management, accounting, oversight for the program, and making sure that the town does the reporting back to the federal government on an appropriate manner. What Weston and Sampson's project would do in their proposal is, if you look at their proposal of just under $500,000, that equates to 5.8% of the total project cost of $8.5 million. So in this pie chart, and I'll just go back quickly, we're looking at that 5.4. So if you break down roughly 60%, which is the $5.5 million program here, and you equate that 8%, that is roughly $300,000 programmed to a $5.5 million initiative for downtown village revitalization, both on the public and private side. So again, we tried to make it a little more tied to your programs so that it may be more understandable of what project costs look like on the soft side and what's left for construction and program initiatives. A different way of looking at that is if we looked at that 80-20 mix that the federal government uses in a $5.4 million program, you would have $4.36 million left for your actual program, kind of construction, boots on the ground, and the federal government would allow you to, in essence, administer that program for over $1 million. The proposal under Weston and Sampson, under that same equation, is under a $5.4 million program, is leaving 5.1 left for construction and utilizing $300,000 for program management. And that program management is also initiating the design of the program, working with their architectural team, landscape team, and transportation team to come up with an analysis of your 4 village areas that you identified in your initial July vetting, and following that through program development. Someone may ask, well, what is program development? This is a typical community that has gone through downtown revitalization. This is just an example of a typical storefront when you bring on an architectural and urban design team. And I'm not saying South Kingstown is urban, but it's generally returned to when you're doing revitalization. You put the team together on the urban design standpoint. Also includes transportation initiatives for complete streets, but this is just a standard storefront that hasn't been redeveloped. During this time, this community went through and retained an architect and design team to look at what that downtown could be if that particular block was revitalized. This was one of their first takes in a community workshop, and their final take that they did at their final presentation was this. So some of those resources, actually $200,000 of Weston and Sampson's proposal, would be used to focus on your 4 village areas, working on 4 days worth of charrettes in your community with your community participants and developing a program. I think part of it is the ability to articulate what everybody's vision is for the downtown. And it's not Jamie Rabbitt's vision, it's not Terry Murphy's vision. It may not be the individual articulation of an individual council member, but it's the community vision. And I think Weston and Sampson's put the correct team together to work with the community to try and do that visual interpretation of what the potential is so that you can reinvest as a community in your economic centers and perhaps come out with something that may look less like this and perhaps more like the third slide. So, again, this is just back to the pie chart showing the total $8.95 million program. So again, I promised I would go through it quickly. Terry and I are available for questions. I know Mr. Schock was potentially going to be available. Okay, but I have spoken extensively with John Schock and Rich Bourbonnais on the management of the program, and I'll do my best to answer and represent their standpoint and their mindset also.
Thank you, Jamie. Any questions for Jamie up here at the table? None? All right, I'll just represent my view as to what we're looking at here. I was one of the members who had asked that we table this to a further meeting, which was to tonight. And one of the reasons for that was I knew we had town manager interviews impending at that time, and I felt it was important that we at least give some deference as to a viewpoint as to the project here. And I can assure you that the conversations had during the interview process have assured us that this is a good plan, a plan that they believe in and a plan that they can administer confidently, and that aligns with the council here. I believe in our framework that we've developed here. And to further on that, I believe in town staff that they don't have the capacity to carry this out themselves, and they don't have the competency really to undertake what this sort of project entails. And I've gotten more assurance as I talk to more people within the area of building and specific to projects for government that a 10% rule of thumb as to the cost of a total project should be allocated toward design and development of the project. And here we're looking at 5.8%. So considering the firm, considering the experience that they have, considering the resources they have to carry out a plan of this nature, I feel confident in this contract, and I'm ready to support it tonight. So that's where I stand. Else would like to speak? We do have a motion. We do have a second. We're in discussion right now.
So this may be wildly unpopular. I've been trying to figure out why I'm not comfortable with this. When we voted to go out to bid for this, we thought we were wrapping up a pandemic, and we did not wrap up a pandemic. It went on for months. So I would be doing a disservice if I did not share that I think we need to look into this a little bit more. We're in a different place than we were over the summer. I'm not comfortable plowing ahead with this right now. I think that this is great. I just am not sure if it's right. And I can't, in good conscience, say that this is the way to go. I'm not there yet. It's a different world than where we were.
So I also have had reservations, and I continue to have reservations. I appreciate the information that we got tonight, and it's much more clear what the tasks are and what the tasks will not be. However, I'm just concerned that I think it was said tonight that the estimate for EMS could be higher. Well, what if it is? Then it's taking a larger chunk away from the downtown village piece, and then we start to creep up in design cost related to that. I know that the fire chief was here tonight. They want a chunk. We have no allocation to them yet. That's another piece that's going to go away. So it makes that blue piece of the pie chart smaller and increases the percentage that we're going to give to
Weston and
Sampson. I almost want to say Smith and Weston, but it's Weston and Sampson. So I have concerns. I also feel that we are ahead of ourselves. We're almost a little bit ahead of where we need to be in terms of what the projects are. If there's 21 projects, sometimes I feel like I don't want to do 21 B- projects. I'd rather do 12 A projects, and we almost sound like we are eliminating things as we add larger projects like the EMS, not EMS, well, EMS and fire. So I just feel like this isn't super time sensitive. The projects need to be outlined by 2023 and completed by 2026. So we do have time to make some adjustments and refine that list of 21 programs. Projects, and I also know like some of them don't need any design help at all. I mean, some of those things could be there. I know that we need project management. It's not something that we don't need. I just don't know if we need it. We need to commit to that right now. So I'm not comfortable bringing this forward. I would want more time. I know that there are parts of it that are good, but I just also think the community is reacting to, you're going to spend we're really giving away a bite of the apple before we as a community even took one bite ourselves. And we're chunking out 500 and really potential to go to 800,000 right off the bat. And so I just am personally uncomfortable, and I feel like I would be remiss if I didn't articulate that others in the community also are paying attention and wondering why we're doing it this way.
Just to address some of your thoughts, Deb, and to show sort of my alternative thinking, I definitely believe that there is a need to be expeditious in the administration of the monies we're going to get. I think businesses on Main Street feel that we should be expeditious about it and addressing their needs and doing what we can to revitalize the villages to ensure further prosperity and alleviate the problems we're seeing in the business sector right now. And I believe in this framework. We've been working on it for over a year now, and I know that whoever the new town manager, whoever that may be, is fully on board with administering this plan and believes it is a good one. And that is something that suffices with me, and it's important, and I'm ready to move forward with this. I think that we're getting the best bang for our buck here in going with this consulting firm based on everything the town staff has told us. I believe we're well under the 10% rule of thumb framework, and I think it's a good plan. Go ahead.
Yeah, go ahead. One of the slides references $200,000 in design work for that storefront, right? You show us that urban storefront, and then you said some of the scope will be to present design plans. So what if we spend all that money and the business says, that's great, but I can't afford that? So what did we do?
So
we just have great plans? Like mom and pop on Main Street might not have that line of credit.
So I think Councilwoman Bergner brings up a good point. So within this, you're not necessarily looking at individual buildings. You're looking at schematics associated with the revitalization of a corridor. Then within that, in essence, a lot of people don't have the ability to envision what something can be. So in the program, there's kind of two aspects. There's using the consulting team to attempt to articulate and format the vision. Then it's up to the individual owners on whether to determine they would like to participate in the program. We've had discussions about whether it's, facade improvements. Should it be an 80-20 match, a 60-40 match, a 50-50 match? If someone had $100,000 worth of improvements, what should that match be? And there's, right now, I think it's roughly $1.5 million set aside for facade improvements. Within that, on the individual basis, even after the schematic of Main Street and that vision is articulated through the community, including the council. I mean, I made this statement last month. The skill set of the team that is part of the proposal is not a team that I've known to initiate their vision of somewhere else on you. They're not someone who just recycles Nantucket, recycles the vineyard, and says, this is what I think South Kingstown needs. They will work with the community to articulate a vision for what you feel is representative of your Main Street. And again, we have 4 areas targeted. And to your point, Councilwoman Bergner, you may decide that if you spread the money amongst 4 villages, that you get Bs, where you may want to target, and I think Abel Collins made this comment early on in the process, that after you vet the 4 villages and come up with plans, and if you're spreading the money too thin, you may actually want to target 1, if not 2, so you can turn those diluted Bs into solid As. Within the program, there's also a little over $60,000 for individual property owners to work with an architect specific to their property once the vision's articulated. I gave you that representative quick slide of 1, 2, 3, here's what is, here's what could be. So it's articulating the visions within corridors associated with the village, and then there's funding in there so that on a matching program that an individual property owner could come in. You know, if architect was billing $125 an hour, we estimated, about $1,200 or 10 hours of that architect's time on maybe an 80-20 match of a property owner articulating their vision and their needs. And one thing Don Powers talked about when he came in, and something he will bring to the table, is it's not just about the outward appearance of the building when it relates to retail. They also have design professionals who deal with the window treatments and what the displays look like within the building, so it activates the street and brings interest. So you can do a beautiful building, but if you have 2 storefront displays that don't create the vision for what's inside the store. So one of the aspects is they will bring part of their design team and make them available during this process to the individuals who want to participate about possibly looking at the retail side from the window display aspect. Yeah. The other aspect is there potentially is other granting available through the state to help the businesses, but when we're applying for those grants, the state wants to know what your vision is for your downtown. And we have prior reports that do some of that, but this would refresh those, and those would make them current, and by being current, they should be relevant.
If I could just chime in here to answer your particular question about businesses not being able to afford it, part of the framework that the council approved includes grants to the businesses for these purposes. So this funding will be supplied to interested businesses on a matching basis, so that it may, like Jamie said, it might be 80-20, it might be 60-40, whatever. But there are funds that are proposed to be set aside for the businesses, to your point, so that they can afford to do these things.
Right.
That was your question, right? How does a business? Okay.
And then again, whether it's 80-20, 60-40, how the program's subscribed, there's also $500,000 initially in there for bus shelters. When EMS came in, that was one of the pieces of the pie that we took $100,000 away from. I think the community could potentially survive with more revitalization of their main streets and then capital programming, or work with the state on a refresh on the bus shelters. I wouldn't jeopardize your vision for downtown and hold out on bus shelters. So there are some of the line items in there that potentially could be utilized in a different format. But we had to put a budget together for you.
Thank you, Jamie. Terry, if you just want to talk briefly about the safeguard mechanism within the contract, whereby if we're not satisfied with the services, there is sort of an out.
So the basic contract framework in any contract that the town has with regard to hiring for construction, engineering, design, there are mechanisms within that contract that allow for a 30-day notice. If the town is done, that they can give a 30 or 60-day notice to a particular contractor to say, this is notice, we are done with this contract. So if there's, if there is a major concern, the contract that the town utilizes for these purposes has a mechanism by which we could separate from the vendor. So that's, and it's typical standard language within the contract, and I don't know if Amy can speak to it, but we have protection within the contract language if the worst case scenario were to present itself.
Thank you. All right, so we do have a motion. We have a second.
I just want to say one more thing. Another concern that I have is with community input. We did have the community share their input. Again, it was a long time ago, and things have changed. And at the very least, I would ask that we offer another community input session to see if the community still wants what we had planned when we were mid-pandemic, when we thought we were end-pandemic. I think we owe it to them to see if that's still where people's priorities lie. My priorities in my personal household are not the same now as they were financially last June. They are not. They're far from it. I think we owe that to the community to circle back around.
If I may. I think hiring the consultant is precisely, addresses that concern. The consultant is not being hired to tell the community which projects we're going to do. They're going out into the community, conducting charrettes, getting input from the community to get those priorities and to develop programs. We saw the Union Fire District come in today. They are another reason to light a fire under us to get us moving and stop just kicking the can down the road. They're not the only community organization that's interested in, and is struggling through this pandemic, and which was, the reason for these funds getting allocated in the first place. If we're going to create a framework for these organizations to come in and seek funding, we need the consultant to help us do that. So that's another reason to do it. I was prepared to vote for this a couple meetings ago. I understood some hesitation waiting for, the town manager search to progress further. But I think we're ready for this now. We've gone through a whole public process to get to this point. We did an RFP process. These people were responsive. They've come forward with a figure that's less than you might expect, given historical precedent for program management on such a program as this. We are not ahead of the pack. Westerly has already hired their consultant. I think it's time that we stop, getting in the way of progress on this council. And that's why I made the motion. I'm prepared to vote.
So I'm trying to understand, and I appreciate what you said, that we could do 4 villages and people, we might prioritize and shift. I almost feel like we didn't do our due diligence to the villages. Like, I'm sitting here thinking about the village of Kingston, and maybe that is an area where we should be focused rather than the downtown, because that economic engine of the University of Rhode Island and college students with more disposable income, I think about the Emporium and how it looks, and maybe it could look a lot better. But I don't know if we've reached out to those different constituencies to be participatory in this process. And so I feel like people might say, you're only focused on Main Street, and Main Street is very important, but there are other villages such as Kingston, or I guess the village of Matunic around the beach. But I'm just trying to ascertain how aware people are of this process, and that I want them to be engaged in saying, I would like to take advantage of some of these things. And I don't know, I don't feel comfortable, and I don't think I can get over it. And I appreciate what you're saying. I'm not trying to get in the way of progress, because I do, as a person who studied urban studies, I understand the value of a vibrant Main Street and vibrant villages. I just want to be sure that we're spending it in the right way at the right time. And I think that we have taken tiny little nips at that 8.9 million already with the natural resource officer. I mean, 9 months ago, we talked about technology improvements so that we could have Zoom and hybrid. People literally say, how come the schools can do Zoom and hybrid and the town council can't? And that whole process is 9 months delayed. We had a conversation in July, and it's still not done. And so, like, there are little nuggets that we've allocated that aren't even done anyway. So I'm just trying to understand the big picture. And, yeah, you know, you do need 10% soft costs, but I'm not ready, so it's fine.
So I fully understand what you're saying, Deb. You're frightened that this is premature, this pie chart, right? But I look at this, that we're hiring the consultant to make us all confident in the pie chart. That's what this team is going to do. It's going to lead us through. We're going to give them our vision. They're going to say, I can tell you right off the bat, you might need to adjust this. This is going to be, now we're going to go to the community. They're going to go downtown and say to the businesses, what do you need, right? Then they're going to be able to drill down on each piece of that pie and tell us whether this is viable. We can't do this ourselves, the five of us. We can't. We need this consultant to get us to the solid pie, to where we're going to spend those dollars. You're right. Maybe Kingston needs something that Wakefield doesn't. You're absolutely right. That's what they're going to let us know. That's what they're going to discern, what's doable, what we can accomplish within the parameters of the Rescue Plan Act. Okay.
Yep. And again, as your planning director, I'm not here to convince anybody tonight. Terry and I have talked about this at length. Our role is to provide you with information. You're setting the policy on our behalf. To a lot of the discussion, to Deb Bergner's discussion and Deb Kelso's, what's the worst case? This is uber successful, super successful, and you don't have enough money. Does that mean you failed? I think it means you succeeded and that you have a program that's viable, and you may need to capital plan in the future. And if your downtown reinvestment or facade programs oversubscribed, it may be something that it becomes an initiative that you fund every 5 years in your capital program. A lot of communities use an influx of cash to start a program that's sustainable over time. That if you have success, and Ms. Bergner, I agree with you, we don't know exactly where the money should be spent best now. And again, you don't potentially have enough resources to hit all 4 or 5 villages hard. You're either going to do soft in all 5, or, you know, and what I would advise you is try and get the most bang for your buck, and the consultant should help you do that. And if you have an investment in Peacedale and Wakefield as an example, and Kingston comes in and says, we have another $1 million or $2 million worth of programs, and if you had more money for facade improvements, I would give you 60-40. I'd do 50-50. Then the council, I think, has to look at long-term. Do you fund a revolving loan program? Do you do something to support your downtowns because it's successful and you're seeing the returns? And we've seen this in communities over time. The buckets can change. And again, that's why you just see one large category. You have $5.5 million targeted for economic revitalization of your downtowns. West Kingston being, you know, Amtrak and that area, 108 and URIs, as well as Matunic, as well as Peacedale, as well as Wakefield, and with Wakefield you throw in Tower Hill. That's a lot of area. You know, again, it gives you an opportunity to vet the program. You may find out there's more money in facade improvements that are needed and less in street trees. more or less in historic lampposts and more in sidewalks. That's what the consultant should help us with.
Where is the Saugatucket Park project in the pie?
In the Saugatucket, well, you have $500,000 potentially that Saugatucket was looking at. There's already 190 targeted for that program. The other two, not in this, in the town's existing budget. Of the funds they were asking for, there was $200,000 in street lighting or sidewalk lighting. I think someone needs to evaluate the initiative of lighting of a park and what the utilization of this in the summer when it's laid out to 9. Are you lighting the park to 9 or 10? And what's the utilization of that? Parks and Leisure has already stated with regards to the park benches that the town has had a very successful initiative with regards to sponsorship of the park benches, so that potentially can be funded in another manner. That happened due to discussion. With regards to street trees and landscaping, a typical 2.5-inch caliber tree is $275 wholesale, which the town can buy, which Rex has stated they are perfectly capable of planting, versus having a landscape do that. So there are ways to break the program down and potentially fund it over there. We also have funds in there for pocket parks and fence improvements and historic lighting. And again, Saugatucket's part of the Main Street. And again, it's working with the consultant and saying, does this work with the program for Main Street, or is it, what part? Where's the synergy? And again, the consulting and the team should find that synergy. And you may find that there are components of Saugatucket that work well, and others that you may need a capital plan for in the future.
Thank you, Jamie. Terry, anything to add? I see you there. No? Okay. All right, at this point, we have a motion. We have a second. We've had a lot of discussion. There's no more discussion. Susan, can you take the roll?
Will. Councilwoman Bergner. No. Councilman Collins.
Aye.
Councilwoman Kelso.
Aye.
Councilwoman Rose. No. Council President McEntee.
Aye.
Motion carries 3-2.
Thank you, Susan. That brings us to business item 13D, which is a resolution authorizing an award of bid to South County Umpires Association of West Kingston to provide youth recreational basketball referee services in accordance with all bidding specifications based on the price per game submitted for the seasons, as further described in a memorandum from the Recreation Supervisor to the Interim Town Manager dated February 15, 2022.
Motion to approve item 13D.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion?
I just
Anyone
want to
opposed?
say how awesome these referees are. My son plays in the rec basketball program, and we're getting more than our money's worth. These guys take the time to, with our youngest ball players, they really do take the time. They help coach them on the court. They encourage them. They're so great. So it's well deserved. It's wonderful.
Agreed. Anyone opposed? All right, that motion passes unanimously. That brings us to 13E, which is a resolution authorizing an award of bid to Automatic Temperature Controls Incorporated of Cranston, Rhode Island for the furnishing and installation of heating, ventilation, and air conditioning and energy recovery ventilators at the Peacedale Library as specified in an amount not to exceed $67,081, including a $3,194 contingency, and is further described in a memorandum from the Facilities Superintendent to the Interim Town Manager dated February 22, 2022.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any discussion? Anyone opposed? All right, that motion carries. That brings us to F, which is a resolution authorizing each town board or commission to determine whether to hold their public meetings in person or virtually until the Governor's Executive Order 22-20, which modifies certain provisions of the Open Meetings Act, sunsets on March 19, 2022, or is extended to a later date.
Motion to approve item 12F. Or is this 13? 13.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any discussion?
So This would allow each town board or commission to determine whether they're going to hold the meeting in person or by Zoom. So what happens when there are some board members who would like Zoom and some that would like in person? What will determine what it is?
A majority.
See, I feel uncomfortable with that because I know that a lot of people who serve, truly serve, they're volunteers who are uncomfortable meeting in person, and so then we set them up to be the pebble in the shoe. And by squeaking, saying, I don't want to meet in person, I would prefer to meet by Zoom. Now, if they don't have a majority, we divide the boards, and so...
So, Amy Goins, I got a question for you. Could we require the boards and commissions to meet via Zoom while we meet in person? Are we allowed to do that?
You can direct whatever manner of meeting you think is appropriate for the council or other boards. You know, the different boards have had different challenges with notice. So you can direct whatever you feel is appropriate.
So where are we? I mentioned in the previous conversation about the purchase of additional technology equipment. What's that update?
Our IT department is still, they've researched, they've brought vendors in, they've assessed the council chambers for that purpose. That is on a long list of priority items within the IT department. They're also looking at the Outlook 365 technology, which is another piece of technology that was recommended. That has gone out to bid, and we've gotten bids on that. That's being vetted and hopefully a recommendation. But as far as the internal audiovisual capabilities of the chamber, we're not there yet. We're just not there yet. There's other things like firewall, implementation, security, cybersecurity, other things that the IT department, which is consists of 3 staff members, is currently working on. So that's why this has not reached the level of implementation at this point.
Would we get an update about when it's realistic that technology would be in place? It's just been 2 years of a pandemic, so the gap has been well articulated.
Mm-hmm.
And it just seems like we spoke in July and said, do this, and now it's 9 months later, and it's just at the bottom. And it is clear that the school committee can do an in-person meeting and have people call in. We cannot do that for some reason, or it's not easy to do. And I would like it to be easy for people in the community to participate in any way that they want to. And so it's not for me to sit home and have a Zoom meeting. It's for me to sit here, but have someone have the option to call in. And it is disappointing that 9 months has gone by and we're not close. And I understand there are other priorities, but I just want to articulate it's just disappointing because we're not there for our community.
On the motion, I just want to remind the rest of the council, the governor's executive order sunsets on March 19th. We're talking a meeting, maybe 2, for each of these boards. If the governor extends 1 more month, then we're into open windows in this chamber. And I think a lot of boards and commissions will feel much more comfortable once the windows can be open and we have some circulation in here. I put this on because a board chair contacted me and asked me to. So that's why I did it. And I agree with that board chair that they should have the option, if the majority of their members feel like are not comfortable coming in here, they should be able to do their business remotely right now until the executive order ends. That's all.
Is that the motion? That they're going to continue by Zoom, or they...
The motion is that they will be able to choose their own destiny right now. until each, correct.
So I certainly think that we should give them the sort of flexibility to make that decision on their own. And then sort of maybe, I agree, this only goes till March 19th, but if it does get to a point where arbitrarily 4 of them are deciding of a body made up of 7 that will meet in person and the other 3 won't show up, maybe we should just monitor that to see if that happens. I don't expect that to happen. I don't anticipate that to happen. But I believe...
We have to revisit this on March 19th, Rory, so we're giving them a month to do
True,
their...
true.
You know, we'd have to come back.
Okay. I'm on board with this. We have a motion, we have a second, we've discussed it. If there's no more discussion, is there anyone opposed? All right, this motion passes. All right, that brings us to G, which is a resolution authorizing the extension of the elderly property tax exemption application deadline from March 15 to May 15 for the 2022 tax year, as further described in a memorandum from the interim town manager to the town council dated February 23, 2022.
Motion to approve item 13G.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Anyone opposed? All right, this motion passes. That brings us to item H, which is a resolution approving an amended employment agreement extending the temporary town manager employment contract as further described in a memorandum from the town solicitor to the interim town manager dated February 23, 2022.
Motion to approve item 13H.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Anyone opposed? All right, that motion carries. That brings us to the end of the meeting. Do I hear a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Anyone opposed? All right, this meeting is adjourned.